First, faculty senate, full faculty your service. As always, we will start with first roll call. Michael?
If you care to make this,
Yeah.
for expediency, since sometimes got name tags.
Right, so we will do that as the meeting is progressing. So we will move on then to the approval of the minutes from July 18th, our July meeting. Does anybody have any comments? Or corrections? Yes.
I do, maybe we'll discuss it later. I don't find it okay that faculties that are on 9-month appointment should meet in July. Unless they are paid to do that.
Okay, yeah, that is in our operating paper, I believe, and the July meeting. And so our governance committee can take that on, and if we want to change that, we can change the operating paper, absolutely.
Thank you.
Do you have a comment?
Oh, no.
All right. So we will need a vote for approval. We will do this by hand raising and on Zoom if you can. Oh, sorry.
Motion.
Right, sorry, motion first.
Second.
Then we will move on to voting by hand raising. So all in favor? Me too. All right, you may lower your hands. Any opposed? Is that opposition on Zoom? Okay, good, thank you. That
Dr. Samadhi.
yes, Dr. Samadi, are you opposing the minutes? Approval of the minutes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And any abstentions? We have 3 abstentions. All right, thank you. Motion passes. All right, and once. All right, so we will move on to President's remarks. Give me 1 second. Need to get those ready. My apologies. Hectic morning already. Some may agree. All right, so first, for my comments, I would like to first acknowledge Dr. John Natta, Assistant Professor in Computer Science at SIUE, and Dr. Kaushik Sinha, an Associate Professor in the School of Computing at SIUC, on receiving the inaugural SIU Systems Faculty Collaboration Award, which recognizes faculty for impactful collaborative endeavors across SIU campuses. Their winning project was entitled Estimating the Burden of HIV in Semi-Urban and Rural Illinois, and was funded by the Illinois Innovative Network from 2021 to 2026. Congratulations to them. I would also like to acknowledge the loss this weekend of Dr. John Davey, professor in the School of Architecture, who served both the SIU community and the Carbondale community for many years, receiving numerous teaching and service awards. He was a current member of the Senate, on the Committee on Committees, and on the Judicial Review Board, as well as other standing university committees. His absence will be widely and acutely felt. I would like to thank him for his service. All right, with that, I would like to progress on with our schedule with invited guests. So we have the Chancellor and the Provost. The Provost is here with us. Thank you. Is the Chancellor on the call? There he is. Oh, I think you're muted.
I am. Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Oh, good, good. Thank you, President Rader. It's good to see everyone. This is the first full meeting, so welcome back. I hope you've had a good couple of weeks of your semester and starting off. I too would like to echo the condolences for Dr. Davey. I know that we're able to put some things out there, but thank you for mentioning that. I think it's important to always reflect on the folks that have moved on and done a great job for us. So with that being said, just a few updates that actually I don't really read a lot to this group. I usually try and go off the cuff, but I think it's important that you're able to see some things that we accomplished together. And I want to highlight the word together We talked about this probably 3 years ago when I arrived about the need to focus on enrollment. And many of you know, those that have lived through the last 10, 15, 20 years, you know that the enrollment at one point in time was very high, and then it took a pretty big dip. And I know when I arrived, we said our goal was to try and move the needle upward. And I'm pleased to report that collectively, we've been able to do that in a number of different areas. And I think it's important that you hear from me that I appreciate the efforts. A lot of this work would not be possible without the support from faculty. So much of what you did in your academic departments and your areas greatly contributed to the increases that you have hopefully already read about. But what you're going to see, I'm going to actually show it. I'm going to share my screen here with you. I want to make sure you get to see what I'm talking about. Can you see that okay, everyone in the room or those that are online with us?
Yes.
You're able to see that? So as we reported, we've experienced the highest overall enrollment growth in the number of students in 21 years. This represents the highest percentage increase in over 30 years. Overall, fall 2023 enrollment was 11,359. That's a 2.3% increase in enrollment from fall 2022, which was 11,107. It's 252 additional students. New first time in college student enrollment is 1621. That's an increase of 103 students, which is 6.8% from fall 2022. Back in the fall of 2022, it was 1518. This is the fourth consecutive year of enrollment growth for new first time in college students. That's pretty refreshing to see that number. That was what we set out to do. Obviously, a couple of years ago, we thought if we could get the first time in college class up, that would really help in a number of different areas. We're still seeing that. Transfer student enrollment increased 10.8%. From 1,072 in fall 2022 to 1,188 students in fall of 2023. Saluki Step Ahead, you've heard a lot about our partnerships and initiatives there. We've got now, I think, 42 or 43 of the 48 community colleges in the state represented with our Saluki Step Ahead. We experienced a 121% increase from 58 students in fall of 2022 to 128 students. I expect that number. Really, I'm not as pleased with that number. I like it to be a lot more. And I think with some of our agreements starting to mature, it's going to be a lot better as we look forward. New graduate and professional student enrollment increased by 11.8% from 973 in the fall of 2022 to 1,088 in the fall of 2023. As many of you know, we were without a vice chancellor for research and dean of the graduate school. So really kudos to Costas and his staff, Karen Jones as well. They've come in and really helped us realize some low-hanging fruit and things that we can do that really serve to support the increases in those areas. So really excited about the work that is happening there and what's going to continue. Overall undergraduate students from the Southern Illinois region, many of you know this, we took this personal. We said we wanted to keep our students in the region at home. As you can see, we've been able to increase 7.2%. From 702 in the fall of 2022 to 754 fall of 2023. New first time in college students from the region increased 7.7%. So that's an area we'll continue to focus on. We'll continue to partner with our superintendents, principals, the folks that really help to keep our students home here locally or in the region. Fully online students increased 9.2% from 1949, the fall of 2022 to 2128 fall of 23. This is an area, if we're going to grow to 15,000 students, we have to continue to increase. Most of the institutions across the country that are increasing are seeing that increase in the online environment. You can't just rely on the traditional age students anymore. We've got to seek non-traditional students or those students who are coming back after maybe stopping out a couple of years ago. They need some flexibility and some convenience. So we're really focused on that number increasing as well. International student enrollment increased 6.5% from 801 in fall of 2022 to 853. And then if you take a look at some of the diversity in the student population, if you look at the students of two or more races, that was increased by 11%. American Indian, Alaska Native students increased by 7.7%. I mentioned international students. Hispanic students increased by 5.6%. African-American students, 2.2%, Asian students, 0.4%, had an increase of 9.8% of new students with a high school GPA of at least 3.5. So really pleased to see that number. Dr. Tucker's probably smiling in there with you as I'm reading this all. Increase in on-campus residential student population. We always look to those housing contracts to see where we are in that regard. So wanted to share that with you just to give you a sense of where we are and how excited we are. If you look across the state, unfortunately, it's not the case for most of our state universities. There are only a few that are up. Some of them are just up in freshmen, not overall. That was our case last year. We were up in freshmen, but not overall. So we really wanted to be committed to going above that this year, and we're able to do that. But across the country, enrollments are still down. And so I don't want us to get too relaxed because, we're already talking about fall of 2024. So short celebration. We will do some things here coming up maybe in the next week with a campus-wide celebration by way of a barbecue. Our folks are setting that up now. We look forward to seeing everyone out there. We will take a little time to celebrate this, but those that know me know that I don't celebrate long on these kind of things because they can go the other way pretty fast if we get too relaxed. So we will be pressing forward. Just got back from Chicago yesterday. It's an area that we're targeting there. I'll bring some more information about that later in terms of some of the things we want to do in the Chicago area. Physically located in Chicago. We'll talk a little bit about that. But overall, really good news to report. Again, this is more of a thank you to all of those that helped contribute to that. You will see our focus shift also a little bit here in the next couple of weeks. Invite you on September 26th is our date for you to attend the retention retreat. That's a university-wide retention retreat. You're welcome to attend. There, we will give kind of a 30,000-foot view of what our retention data looks like today and what it's looked like actually over the last 10 years. So we'll go back to 2013 and we'll go back and look at what retention looked like. Many of you were here. You know what I'm talking about in terms of those percentages on persistence from fall to spring, fall to fall. We'll also look at our progression rates in terms of how students are progressing from freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year, and then most importantly, graduation rates. We'll look at 4-year, 6-year rates and get a good snapshot of what our campus looks like and then what we'd like to achieve overall between now and 2030. So we'll finally lay out, just like we did with enrollment, we'll lay that out for retention so we get a good look at what we'll look like there. Switching gears very, very quickly. I know maybe a little long today. I apologize. I didn't want you to see that. One piece that we are working on collectively, and thanks to President Rader and President Punske and others, we are taking a really hard look at being able to get our payback out of the way this year. And I know that Dr. Tucker has talked to the deans. We've got some plans in place. Just give you a little flavor. I've done this with the Faculty Senate Executive Committee, but for those that were here in 2017, you probably remember the infamous financial sustainability plan that was to run from 2017 to 2024. That plan, the goal behind that plan was that during the budget impasse of 2015, we had to deplete our reserves to the tune of about $38 million. And that's a lot of money. And it's because the state at that time did not fund higher education. And as you know, many of you lived it. There were furloughs, there were all types of things that were happening. And we committed in that financial sustainability plan we committed to the board to spend the next 7 years from 2017 to 2024 paying that back. And so, as you know, every year there's a payback or dollars that are coming back from different areas to cover this particular amount. Pleased to report this is our last year of the payback, 2024. This is the last year. With that amount, that payback amount amounts to $12 million. We need to get this payback out of our way because we have other bigger items like our faculty equity adjustments, the study that we're getting ready to embark upon. We've got some faculty contracts that need to be negotiated here in about another year, where we're going to need resources to be able to do that. So even in the midst of us chopping this payback off this year, I'm going to propose to the board next week or at our next board meeting that we have a 2% increase across the board for all employees because of some of the things that we've been able to do financially and support from the state. So we are still going to go forward with that to try and help. We know it's not a lot, but every little bit hopefully will help on our track to try and continue to do that as we adjust different salaries from an equity lens across campus. So how are we going to do that? Well, in this particular final year of the financial sustainability plan, the idea is that we go after some vacancy savings. Within the A&P category and civil category, we're going to be really holding the line on any hires this year for about the next 10 months. We have to get to the end of the fiscal year. Doesn't actually sounds like a long time. It's actually not a long time, but during that time, we're going to be heavily scrutinizing any hires from A&P and civil positions because we really feel like we can save a lot of money in that area to the tune of about $9 million. So again, if the payback's at 12, if we can hold the line on some of those positions, we'd be in good shape. There's some academic vacancy positions that we're talking about. Dr. Tucker is talking with her deans about. Only in extenuating circumstances will any positions be approved, but they will definitely be scrutinized. So we'll make sure that when we are putting those positions out there, that we're not shooting ourselves in the foot with being able to hit our mark here. So we are going to be watching that. Another area that we're counting on is going to be from our foundation. We're asking them to help out to the tune of about $4 million as we try and take foundational dollars and put it on institutional areas that we need that support. So we're going to be really moving in that regard. From our DE dollars that we generate, those DE dollars from a priority standpoint will go towards any faculty that have been hired or dependent upon those DE dollars to fund their salaries. So the first priority in there is obviously to make sure the instructional costs are covered if folks are being paid off of DE money. The other items, those one-time items that we've purchased in the past or that we've been able to allocate to different areas in the past, those items will be worked through with Dr. Tucker and the deans on a case-by-case basis as it relates to spending of DE dollars outside of instructional costs. So really non-personnel items will be scrutinized to make sure, again, for the next 10 months that we've got a percentage of money. So the beauty of the payback, if you remember the last 6 years, we would always go back to the departments and say, hey, give us $250,000, $300,000. We're not doing that. We're not asking those departments to come up with that kind of money at the end of the year, the middle of the year, or at all. We're tackling it with the personnel savings. That's the bulk of the money here. So that's the idea. We've talked to a lot of groups out there already. We'll continue to do that about every month to give you an update. I'll give you an update personally here at this meeting so you know where we are. We're tracking that spending to make sure we get that $9 million or $12 million that we're looking for. Susan Simmers, our CFO, brings that to cabinet to give us the update there to let us know how we're doing. I look at this as a celebration, a way to get this out of our way. I've had to live through it for 3 years. I can only imagine for those who have been here longer than me, you've had to live through it obviously for 7 or for longer than I have, for for those purposes. So we want to get this out of our way. We did promise to have it out of our way in that sustainability plan. And all of that was a result of obviously us not having a state budget. So a lot more information that we'll bring forward on that. Again, I want to thank all of our faculty on the call for helping us hit those targets and those enrollment numbers that we talked about. Got a lot of work to do going forward to look to fall 2024 for recruitment and also retention. And I'll stop there. And Dr. Tucker, I don't know if you have some things to add there, but I'll pause out there and then take any questions.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. I hoped I could be here more often, and sometimes the schedule just doesn't allow it. But I want to give you some updates, and hopefully I'm not repeating anything you already know. But from a personnel standpoint, the interim associate provost for academic programs, I'm delighted that Dr. Julie Dunstan has accepted that position. She's from industrial management and applied engineering. I was doing both jobs there for a little bit, so I'm definitely pleased that we have someone, particularly with the experience of the rules and regulations at the state level. As I was learning those on the fly, because every state is different. Also, this will align very well with your agenda and your initiatives. I brought on a faculty fellow, Dr. Rob Lopez from Art and Design last month to do exactly what you're asking, faculty and leadership professional development. This is an area I'm very passionate about. I think many of you know that from my interview. And I think there's an opportunity here for us to build out training programs and mentoring opportunities, ensure the success of all our faculty, whether they be just coming in the door or junior in their career all the way to senior faculty who may be looking to change their research focus and want to do more collaborative or interdisciplinary work. Also, this has been mentioned a few times, the development of an academic strategic plan. People are very interested in that. And I'm going to invite publicly Dr. Rader to join me on the school and college visits as her schedule allows. We're getting into the point of being able to start scheduling those. There's been a few other things to take care of first. But this very much aligns with the Faculty Senate's ad hoc committees on student success, the faculty experience, reputation, etc. So we're hoping between the institutional strategic plan, the work that you're already doing, all this will dovetail very nicely into an academic affairs strategic plan. And it does align very well with the retention retreat this month, which again, as the chancellor said, I hope you'll have time to join us, even if you can just join us part of that if you don't have that full block of time. Retention is certainly going to be a focus in the academic affairs strategic plan. It must be. I think we all feel like we could do better, that it doesn't reflect the caliber of institution that we are. And as we bring more students in, this becomes even more important as they progress and are successful, and ultimately, right, the ultimate retention rate is graduation. And so we're excited about that. And I'm hoping that all of you and the institution, like you, embrace the enrollment concern. And it was a team effort to achieve those numbers, as the chancellor said, that we will embrace retention in the same spirit, that it is a shared responsibility, that we will all come together and figure out ways to enhance our retention. And one of the things that I'd like you to start thinking about is, where are we the problem as an institution? What policies and procedures do we have in place? And I'm certainly running into a few already, that it is not supporting student success in the way that we had hoped. That's one of the things that sometimes we don't look at. And there's a lot of work around kind of the unwritten rules and hidden agendas. Certainly in the graduate education space, we've talked about this for a long time, but we're finding that's true at all levels, particularly with undergraduate students, transfer students. We don't need unwritten rules and policies, right? We want every student to know exactly what we expect of them and where their resources are. And so part of that is I put a call out to individuals who are passionate about University 101. To me, that's one of our ultimate retention mechanisms. It has, I think I may have mentioned to some of you, it has a DFW rate of 20%. And as a provost and a former faculty who taught general chemistry, which you get a real mix of abilities in that class, I find once you hit that kind of DFW rate, you have to look inward about maybe what we're not doing successfully and not just what the student's responsibility for learning is. And so we're looking at how can we engage students more effectively and hoping to go to having a learning outcome core curriculum, but then having more of a college and school focus so that we can connect those students effectively to community. And so that is part of this initiative. So it's a little push-pull in the sense that we don't have an academic affairs strategic plan we're developing, but at the same time, we need, as the chancellor says, speed win. So there are things that we just need to get moving now. And so the faculty and staff are going to be contributing to that work. And the first part of the work will those core learning outcomes. And then in the spring, the hope is to have a much more college school focus. And there's a couple of programs we'll be looking at. Our Associate Vice Chancellor, Wendell Williams, for enrollment management, as well as the Chancellor, we're at Lone Star Community College, where they did this across multiple campuses. And then our own College of Liberal Arts faculty got together and have proposed COLA 101 in place of University 101. So it's a nice backbone for us to be looking at. There's a couple different ways people have done this. And then for us as a community to decide what fits us here. So I'm delighted that faculty in liberal arts already took initiative and had a proposal that we can use and that they're willing to lead us through that endeavor and are willing to let us take their work and make it more institutionalized. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, and it follows on with the chancellor, we are going to use a much more intentional budget approach this year, where the deans will be planning their budgets. We'll be providing that information to colleges earlier so that allow us to more effectively get our contracts in on time. Some of you are aware we've had some issues with graduate students and faculty not getting paid on time. We don't want to ever see that happen again. And so thinking about that budget process and helping people understand what the majority of their resources are going to be every year so they can go ahead and get contracts in. And also that they can propose then new initiatives that align with our strategic plan. So we have programs that have the ability to grow enrollment. We have programs that want to bring new initiatives forward to support faculty, such as their ability to enhance their scholarship through their writing skills. So there's a lot of things like that. So we're asking the colleges to bring forward those ideas in February when we'll have budget meetings. So if there are things that you are passionate about, definitely make sure those funnel up through your leadership and see that they can be proposed. We won't be able to fund everything because investing in our people is, as the chancellor said, that is our #1 priority coming up. But we also hope to have some resources to invest in strategic initiatives as well. And happy, like the chancellor, to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, we have about 7 minutes for questions.
Hey, so I have a question for both provost and chancellor related with enrollment. Of course, first of all, congratulations to you and to everybody here too for the increase of enrollment. My question is related to one is we have a goal to have 15,000 students by 2030. I was wondering if we can, or you have already got written down numbers, what we're looking for next year, how many new students we're going to expect to recruit, and also based on the current retention rate, how many students we're going to have. So just give us a little bit clear ideas as faculty or maybe unit leaders for this number. So we'll have a more solid plan. Coupled with that, I think is more to my kind of a curiosity is talking about, I see interestingly graduate student numbers increase. Many years ago, probably many of us here remember, we used to have a higher number of graduate students, self-paid graduate students from computer science. And one of the sticking points that led to the decline of the number is the faculty or the unit would like to have a portion of the tuition being paid return to the unit so that the unit can hire lecturers to teach so many graduate students, and then it never happened. So that's why the unit was less motivated and decided they did not want to hire the student. I was wondering if you have thought about that, trying to encourage. Yes,
I can address the latter part. Computer science actually is a proposal that's already come to me. I've asked the deans for proposals for growth. And they've already made a proposal to hire 2 faculty with X% enrollment growth. And I've already said I'm willing to fund one, and the college is willing to put up the other one. So we are trying to invest, create incentives for people to enhance enrollment by a shared model of we'll invest and the college is willing to reallocate resources and also invest, because that is a program where we believe we do have not only opportunity for enrollment growth, but they are, as you said, those are self-paced students for the most part. On the projection for enrollment, I'm going to pass that off to the chancellor.
I can touch on that. Yeah, so we have every place I've been, we historically have a formula we work with, to your point, that really tracks how many students are you going to need if you're trying to hit an overall number. So obviously we look at the number of new first time in college students, which is what we've been doing for the last couple of years. You factor that into the number of graduates that you expect to have in your spring class, your larger class in May, and then the number of students you plan on retaining. So we're right now in the middle, if you will, of looking at that. We'll bring that out at the September 26th retention retreat, because that's when we'll also present to you the overall number. We're at 11,359 now. That was a 2.3% increase over fall of 2022. So, we'll set the mark on what we'd like to hit. But believe it or not, we thought for a while we were going to get close to 11.6. And down the stretch, you have students that really want to stay, but as you know, they have to depart. And so our number, while it was higher than 11,359, it was actually higher than that going down the last few days. But then we lost a few students, right? So we take exactly what we thought we would have achieved, and we'll put another percentage piece on there. But that formula hadn't been worked out yet. But at the retention retreat, we'll bring that overall number, what we expect to be. And you mentioned the overall goal was 15,000 students, we're thinking by 2030. And to do that, if you do the math from 11,359 to 15,000, it actually looks attainable if you count that out over 7 years. But there's some pockets we have to deeply tap into from an online, non-traditional environment, in addition to a more physical location in Chicago and Springfield and some other areas that we're targeting. So, and finally, the graduate piece that you just mentioned and Dr. Tucker just responded to, and I know Costas, Satsoulis, Dr. Satsoulis, I don't know if you want to respond to anything there, but I know you guys are thinking about how to increase that graduate enrollment too.
Yeah, absolutely. Our graduate enrollment has increased a little bit this fall, and the majority of the increase has been in online students. So I think that in many ways, reaching out to students, actually our own alumni, who would like to build on their degree, it's going to be very important. One of the things we're doing is, in parallel what is happening on the undergraduate level, that we're looking at in inviting our students who did not finish their master's degree, but have about between 6 and 9 hours to go, to come back and join us and finish that degree, and hopefully finish it online. And I think that online is, in many ways, at least for the masters, the way that we are expecting it to go.
Yeah, what I love about what's happening is, and you heard Dr. Tucker mention it, you heard Dr. Satsoulis mention it, almost gone are the days as, oh, we don't have enough faculty. Well, I think you're starting to see in some of these areas that we're going to add faculty in programs where we know there's going to be growth. It's not rocket science. And I know Dr. Tucker's already started doing that in certain areas. So I think that's going to better support the deans as we look to really capitalize in some areas, especially as we battle in the enrollment market out there with other institutions. You know, we got a big target on our back right now because we have increased and some have not. So, you know, we've got to continue to do that and continue to find areas where we're getting that return on investment and make the investment, right, to be able to expand in some of these areas that we know expansion is possible.
Thank you.
One more question.
Sure. Just one comment, two quick questions. First of all, congratulations to you, Chancellor Nan, and your leadership team, as well as our faculty member in entire campus for the enrollment growth this year, which is very important. Okay. And second, okay, perhaps Chancellor Nan will give us some overall picture of the state budget the next few years, because that will affect the faculty members, especially the higher in the future. As we increase in enrollment, obviously, perhaps we'll also think about the plan to increase our faculty members. So that's my question first for Chancellor Nan, then Provost Tucker.
Yeah, I tell you, if I had to answer to what the state was going to do, though, Dr. Lee, I probably wouldn't be here. I'd be like Nostradamus or something. Yeah, we're
I'm asking
fortunate.
about Wall Street.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I'd be in a different business, but we are, you guys have been here a lot longer than I have, and so we're not back to the level of state appropriation that many of you saw, 20 years ago. Matter of fact, we're right at about 106 million. We went up because we got the $5.5 million increase in the state approach, which we're very thankful for. But it's not at the level that it used to be. And when that happens, and your salaries and everything else are really contingent upon what you get in that state appropriation, that makes it a little tough. So our hope is that, we continue to kind of sing our song about, inching up closer to where we used to be. I'm hoping now the governor is very interested in our enrollment increases. I've talked to him personally. I've talked to his deputy governor on a number of occasions. They are extremely excited about what's happening here at SIU Carbondale with enrollment. They were wanting our information before we could even tally it up, because they were hearing stories about our increases. I hope that translates legislative session to more support for our institution, right? So that's the idea, that's the hope. The other side of that is the tuition revenue, which is also a revenue source for us. The tuition revenue will be critical. Obviously, you have to have tuition, you have to have enrollment, right, for the tuition revenue to go up. And the final piece is why I want the payback or the sustainability 12 million out of the way, because it does allow us, Dr. Lee, to do some other things besides trying to find the give back, right? It allows us to now, instead of worrying about $12 million of giving it back, is how we can spread that across the university or build our reserve back. We've got to do that too. We can't just operate paycheck to paycheck. We've got to have our reserve get healthy again. And that'll put us back on good financial footing. So, our hope is we just continue to, keep the can or the cup out there and make sure the state realizes that we've got to have more in state appropriation.
Yeah, and in working on an academic affairs strategic plan, faculty numbers and the different types of that we need are going to be important, whether it's tenure track, non-tenure track. And one of the things that we're clearly seeing already with enrollment growth is we're having to kind of backfill at the 11th hour with non-tenure track faculty. And we actually ran into a situation where there are no more bodies to put in the classroom. And our enrollment, we could additional faculty. So we're asking the deans to look at that, particularly in the College of Liberal Arts, where you have the general education or core curriculum being taught. If you are hiring X number of non-tenure track faculty, I'm feeling pretty comfortable with where we are. Let's look at, do we want non-tenure track faculty for the year, or do we want to add a tenure track faculty along with that? What do we want to be doing? Because that has to come from the faculty, through the colleges, but asking them to look at what that mix is. And instead of just kind of getting along at the last second, let's be more thoughtful now that, you know, this positive trajectory, I feel very comfortable with, because everybody is engaged. We got here, that's how we're going to stay here. And we have plans for additional growth this year with our partnerships, et cetera. So I am asking our leadership to look at our faculty numbers and where it makes sense to start not relying just on non-tenure track faculty that we sort of bring on at, you know, the end of August. That's not a model that is sustainable, and I would prefer we move away from that, even if we have to risk occasionally having a little more capacity than what we.
And thanks to Dr. Lee. Dr. Lee, when you were faculty senate president, you'd always tell me, hey, we need an academic plan. And a lot of what you heard Dr. Tucker talk about in the development of this academic plan is finally coming along, if you will. So the faculty have a lot more insight into what is going to occur in the academic wing of the institution. So that does tie in nicely, right, to the overall strategic plan, but there's so many subplans. So later this year, you'll hear about the campus master plan. We're putting an RFP out there and looking at scope of work to talk about what the campus will look like in 2030 and 2040 and 2050. You know, some of us will be here and some of us won't, you know, but we've got to start talking about the future of the institution. There's the IT plan that we're going to dig into in terms of technology. You know, what do we want to look like in that regard? You've heard about the enrollment management plan. So all of these sub plans will begin to really tease out a lot of the direction that we're trying to go together.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, we're 10 minutes behind already. We did be all right if we would put a question for our next session. Thank you very much. All right, thank you, Provost Tucker and Chancellor Lane, for your reports and for being with us here today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, as we move on to the reports, I would actually like to make a motion to include the Grad Council representative and VCR at the end of the report section. This was an oversight on my part, and I apologize for doing so, but would like to include them on the schedule.
I second.
We'll just do a yay or nay vote. So all in favor?
Yeah.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right.
So now I have to prepare a presentation.
Sorry about that. Well, just if you have anything that you would like to.
Okay.
Sorry about that. That is entirely my fault. I don't have anything to report for executive committee, so we can move on to our Vice President, Dr. Chakowski.
Thank you, Dr. Rader. So one of our big things that we've worked on is looking at building our elections process. So our elections committee met towards the end of August, and we looked at the protocol for developing an election. As you know, that we had two positions that we needed to fill, and I'm assuming now we'll have a third position, unfortunately, that we have to fill. So I worked with Josh. He updated our faculty lists for all of the colleges. So now we're sending out a call for nominees. And our hope is that we will be able to work through this process over the next month and bring on board a few new senators for our October.
Well, Elaine, you and I have worked together for 5 years. This is the first time I think we've seen each other in person. And you are stunning.
Wow. Well, thank you. That's what happens when you get to hide away. All of a sudden people realize like, okay, never mind. The only other thing that I have to report is that I did attend the grad council meeting last week. And so I'm gonna leave whatever report to Dr. Collins. I don't want to steal his thunder, but there are a lot of interesting new RMEs coming down the pike. So I think we have, I found it pretty exciting. I'm gonna leave that to Dr. Collins to report to us. So thank you.
Any questions for Dr. Chakowski? Thank you for your report. Moving on to the budget committee.
Rachel Bailey. I'm the new chair of the budget committee. Budget committee has not yet met. Executive committee met last week and a couple of things on our agenda. It does say on today's agenda for us to have a discussion on the school director contract months. What I'd like to do is just let you know what that's about, but then ask for the budget committee to do some research before we actually have that open discussion. So this stems from a request from Dr. Lee when he was Faculty Senate President back in April 2022 for the budget committee to look into how many months school directors are paid, 10 to 12 months, and what impact that's having on any budget savings that occurred through reorganization. And so that person have that conversation, but I just feel like I'd like to do a little bit of research first and find out how many directors we have, how many have different months of contracts and so on. So we have a more informed discussion. Last year, the budget committee spent the entire year on salary compression. And so that is probably why this did not get addressed. And then the budget committee is going to talk about whether they're going to look into the peer equity stage of the pay equity process. First step was internal salary compression. And if you don't know, that's now in the hands of a consultant, or will be in the hands of a consultant. Will be involved in that process as well. And then the next step was originally a peer equity study, but that sounds highly complicated. So the budget committee will talk about that. So budget committee members look for an email from me in the next week or so to set up our first meeting.
Any questions?
One actually. We've heard that actually the university got back some of the money we want to pay the debt that we had. And I wonder whether, the dean should have actually consulted with some of you guys before, deciding which money they can give back, because some of the money might hurt, the rest of the faculty. And I really would like, at least for your budget committee to consult it, for certain things.
Yeah, I don't know how that process works. I mean, that was a sudden discovery, I guess, of the lost DE money or the DE money that didn't exist and was spent. So I assume that those conversations were at the highest level. How do we rectify that?
I mean, shared governance is something that, the university is pushing, and the chancellor is actually keen on establishing that. It would be nice if actually, we are consulted, at least we can say, hey, this is something that might hurt, then the dean is still willing to go with it. Take responsibility, she has to take responsibility for that.
So this would be an issue if there's a future situation where they come to colleges and say, hey, we need some money back.
Yeah.
So it would be kind of planning for the future.
Future
Guess they're
could
not
be-
taking anything. Right?
Future could be next hour.
Yeah. Okay, we'll just keep that on our radar, I guess. And, maybe I can talk to Provost about it.
Any other questions or comments for the budget? Thank you. Moving on then to Committee on Committees.
Okay, so we are in the process of trying to fill a few positions on campus-wide committees. We're working on the Joint Benefits Committee and the two non-faculty Senate volunteers that we want to bring on for faculty status and welfare in UAPC. And then we're still working on who the AI committee will be reporting to. And we kind of talked about the fact that probably when we have a resolution to create a committee, part of that exploratory process should include who they're going to report to, because this one, we've had a few of them right now that we've had, it's been interesting trying to figure out who they should report to. One of those is the consensual relationships committee, and I'll let you talk about that.
So there was a call to put together a consensual relationships policy review committee. That policy has not been reviewed in a while, although there has been a graduate student who is a law graduate, she's a lawyer, who has been doing some research on that. And we are so proud that Rachel Whaley has agreed to be the committee chair for this. She so graciously is putting all of this together. Rachel, do you want to comment on your committee?
The committee is a size of 6. We have 2 faculty, 2 staff, 2 students. And so within that, we have 1 tenure track, 1 NTT, 2 staff folks from different areas, and then 1 graduate student and 1 undergraduate student. So
she's put that all together in a very short time and has put together a very impressive group of people whom I think will carry this forward in the best way possible. So fantastic. Thank you again.
if you have it in front of you, you can say who the
Okay. Melissa Bernal is the NTT representative. Mila Burton is the graduate student. She's the one who has been doing the research into this area. Victor Ludwig, who is an undergraduate student. Hillary Wittenborn, who is the assistant athletic director. She's a staff member. And Sarah Von Boren, who is the director of university events and conferences, also a staff member. So a very impressive group of folks to be working on this topic, folks. Thank you.
And they'll be working with legal counsel as well. So that's gonna be.
Who are the faculty?
I'm sorry.
Who are the 2 faculty?
myself and then
Melissa Bierman. Oh, she's the NTT. Yeah, she's in the education department, correct? Yeah. She used to be on the EPC chair.
Yeah, it's like early childhood.
Right, early childhood. I think she's,
Architecture.
I think she's actually the director of.
Southern.
Region
Early-
early
Thank you.
childhood.
Like CDL.
Right.
CDL.
Yeah, I couldn't tell her, but she's got an excellent background for this, so.
Yeah, agree.
All right, the other is R1 Classification Exploratory Committee, which we were asked to put together. And there were a number of people who volunteered for that. And what we decided to do as a committee, the entire committee, not just Sherry and I, but the entire committee discussed this. And we put together a group of people who were very diverse in terms of the department from which they came, so that we've got representation from all different, as many different areas as we could. Also picked out people who themselves were a diverse group. And so that, again, we've got a diverse group of people putting in their views. And then we looked at people who tended to have not as many. Some folks tended to have beyond 5 to 20 different committees. And so we went with some folks who weren't as busy, hoping to get people who would have lots and lots of time to put toward this, because that's probably what it's going to be. I think they're meeting once a month is what they're planning. And then talking about maybe even more at some point. Did I understand that correctly?
They're gonna start out establishing where we are currently, and then eventually, once they establish where we are, then they'll look at. And Dr. Satsoulis could speak to this actually, because this is his committee.
Right.
And then beyond that, they'll determine direction, and then probably some subcommittees will create it, and probably more people will be involved.
We've got Dr. Michael Hyland, who is an associate professor and program director of the Brain and Cognitive Sciences, the School of Psychology. Arash Kamai, and I may be just totally mispronouncing that. That's an unusual name for me. Kamai, does anybody know? Okay, this person is also an associate professor, School of Electrical, Computer and Biomedical Engineering. And then Diana Sarko, who is an associate professor in the Department of Anatomy with the School of Medicine. Diana's right. So that's our R1 classification exploratory representatives from the staff. I think that's it, Sharon.
Any question for the committee on committees? All right, thank you guys. Appreciate it. All right, we'll move on to faculty status and welfare committee.
Okay. Good afternoon. Before I talk about the faculty status welfare committee, I would like to report to you about the EOC, that is Emergency Operating Center. I attended a couple of meetings there with regard to COVID-19. And you have seen the announcement from EOC. Basically, if any student have any, it's a symptom, pandemic symptom, we all follow the CDC guideline. If faculty member or staff member, obviously, if they have any symptom, also need to follow the CDC guideline. We must also inform their supervisors, school director, deans, etc. And that's one thing we talked about the EOC. And second, okay, faculty status welfare committee met before this meeting, and we had 2 resolutions. So for the second resolution, that means support for resolution of faculty development and support, and the committee unanimously supported it. And for another one, which we would like to have more discussion, so I will defer to the faculty senate president and also the vice chancellor, I mean the SIU system vice president of ADEI, and Dr. Cole here. Maybe Bethany, you want to say something?
Yes. So everyone should have received a packet of information about a set of ADEI guidelines. And I want to give a little, so that's what we would like to discuss. I would like to give a little bit of background before we get into discussion, before I hand the floor over to Dr. Caldwell. So the FACSS committee, the faculty advisory committee for the SIU system, which is composed of faculty from SIUE, SIUC, the School of Music, and the School of Dental Medicine, made anti-racism, diversity, equity, inclusion a part of their agenda last year, and approached Dr. Caldwell last fall to produce a set of guidelines for faculty to use if they so choose during their tenure and promotion review. Dr. Caldwell worked diligently to do so and can talk a little bit more about the process of producing those guidelines. But for reference, some of the motivations for faculty requesting these guidelines include things like support for the 2030 strategic plan, to provide a mechanism to acknowledge and reward faculty, reward work faculty are already doing on ADEI that might not be acknowledged during review processes. And as a motivation for faculty to engage in activities that promote ADEI if they want to include that as part of their work here at SIU. So that being said, I want to emphasize that these guidelines are a recommendation, and as such, can be utilized by programs, schools, or colleges for inclusion in their operating papers if they so choose to do. They are not mandated, and faculty can choose to include any number of the guidelines in their operating papers or use them as a starting point to write their own guidelines and procedures. There's no penalty if faculty or units choose not to utilize them. And it is up to faculty at large what to include in their operating papers overall. The idea was to make a set of guidelines and make those guidelines visible and available for interested faculty, which we are doing here at Senate. And then finally, I really just want to reemphasize that the request for these guidelines came from the faculty, not from top down. It was not a top down driven request. And that it is up to you and your units whether to use them. And if so, if you would like to use them, how you choose to use. So with that, I'd like to yield the floor to Dr. Cole.
I think you said it all. Thank you so much, President Rader. I do want to just quickly talk about the process. So really, I'm here to, again, just reinforce what President Rader just said, and also just say that, again, the faculty, this is a faculty-driven document. They said, hey, we want these guidelines, who could do it? Would you all mind basically taking on this role for us? And we were pleased to do it. It was the System Diversity Advisory Council. So similar to the Faculty Advisory Committee, we had representatives from the School of Medicine, from Providence, as well as Everett. It was actually about 22 people, particularly on that committee, and that was really our task. We try to focus on task driven work. And so from September to April, we had several iterations of this document. I was very clear about making sure that, you know, faculty had a large voice in this document. In fact, I said I wouldn't even submit it unless 80% of the faculty on the committee actually gave recommendations, because I wanted to make sure that we had integrity when we submitted the document. So again, it's not faculty driven, it's not mandated, it's not mandatory. Really, what we wanted to say is, again, how can we acknowledge and award people who are already doing this work? A lot of times, these things are in place of service. So if you look at the document, you will see that we looked at research, teaching, and service in this particular document. And oftentimes DEI activities, no matter how robust and meaningful, they don't always have a place in the team and recommendation promotion process. And so oftentimes it's looked at service. So what does it look like if someone would receive a $1 million grant? You know, would that still be placed in service? So again, if you look even on the first page, section B, it talks about great grant seeking or obtaining that provides funding for researchers that focus on ADEI. We also have faculty from all different backgrounds who are obviously participating in workshops and doing a lot of things as it relates to diversity. And so again, this document serves as a way for committees to say what work is already being done and how do we want to acknowledge and award that particular work in the tenure promotion process. So somebody could say, we're just going to take letter A from research. Somebody may say, we're going to take this whole section and put it in the operating papers. And then again, that's up to the committee. Our work pretty much stopped when we submitted the document. We said faculty can do with this document as they see fit. We simply wanted to do the research. So these are high impact practices. We looked at other institutions and what they were doing. And we also did research to show that this is a growing trend within higher ed. So we're not like the first groups by any means to actually produce this type of document. If you look on the last page, I'm just going to say, we specifically looked at SIUC, so we considered your promotion and tenure guidelines here at Carbondale as well as Everdale. We looked at the Indiana University, University of Colorado, and the University of Oregon. So those are the different specific recommendations that we adopted from learners to make sure we source that properly. And then again, we also got input for faculty. I would say after this document was created, I think I got about 5 more iterations specifically from faculty members who said you need to change this as well as that. And so again, I pretty much relied on that expertise and did what they recommended. So that is the document. I welcome any questions you have about this, as I've explained as well as President Reagan.
Well, thank you so much for the presentation and the clarification. And before we move on the resolution on faculty support, do you have any comments? To ask Dr. Powell, any question for her?
I just want to say thank you for coming or for clarifying, because I was on the committee that was voting on this and we just had, I don't know, about 500 words. That was totally unclear. Like it was really, I mean, it was like, at this point, they're already employed, so is it about, we didn't know what it was about.
I get that,
Yeah.
And
So we need to rewrite before we vote, is my,
I'll share, at executive council, we talked about not having a vote on this because it's not a resolution, it's a guidelines. So it doesn't seem to meet the threshold of needing a vote or approval of faculty senate. It's just something that will be available to units if they want to use it. So that's a change that's happened since you.
Okay. If I understand you accurately, I think I know we had the faculty staff welfare committee and the 7 members. 3 of them were against the ideas, 4 of them supporting. That's why we didn't put the resolution on the table, the agenda. We want more discussion. So I'm willing to send back the resolution to our committee to ask if you have any new idea, new suggestion. I'm open to change it. Hopefully in October, the next faculty senate meeting, we will have official resolution based on our discussion. Would that be okay with you?
I thought you just said we're not going to vote on it anyway.
I think that's what we talked about. It was maybe not voting on it at all.
So we do not need a
We
resolution.
do not need a resolution. Yeah.
We don't have to approve it, it's just a set of
It's
guidelines,
just the
right?
guidelines.
We
don't
could-
have to approve.
Give it a vote of support or not, but
Well, if I could just say, the way the faculty resolution came about, again, they had a faculty committee, and you were actually at that particular meeting. And so the question was, now that you have these recommendations, what's the best way for faculty to adopt and include this? And then the faculty resolution concept came up, and so that's actually how it was presented again. That was the faculty recommendation, and that's the best way to get these, some of these recommendations adopted. So I would say, I do have one question. So with support, again, it's very flexible. So how would this document be used? If it's supported, if it's not a resolution, would you have it at meetings for operating committees, for senior promotion guideline committees? How exactly do you plan to at least introduce it and incorporate it into?
put it on a web page and make it available and advertise it that it's available.
I would bring it up at, the next time we're looking at operating papers and see and propose that we incorporate it in operating papers, but I feel like also, given that I think the narrative, of how you guys decided to do this, or how they, whoever, I'm not sure, but that would also be helpful for us to bring it back to our programs. People felt like that this is an important part of, it's not, it's not only service, it's not only, it's not one of the usual kinds of things. It's basically an attitude or a commitment or a dedication to a particular kind of position. And so it could feel dicey or weird, although it's like, actually, the university says that we're dedicated to this, but there's not necessarily unanimity in how do you practice this. And so what you're saying is that if you're actually practicing it, because often it's just like empty language, right? So it's saying that actually if you practice it, there should be some form of acknowledgement.
And
Well,
also rewarding
I
the
think-
physical labor, that was something we talked about.
Right,
last time.
that's
And
what I
think-
was gonna say.
Yeah, so I think you have, like, I've actually specifically on this campus had women faculty come to me and say, I'm now the only woman in my department because the others have basically retired or moved on, and now they're serving on all committees. And so they were letting me know that that's something that I need to address as I do my diversity work, is that not just looking at ethnic diversity, but also enforcing or re-emphasizing the fact that, on this campus, that we do need to acknowledge the fact that people are doing a lot of labor that they're not getting acknowledged for, and it's based on their identity, rather be an ethnic person or specifically a woman in their department. So I did want to add that piece. That was another reason that we wanted to develop this document. And I know that on the Diversity Advisory Council, we have very diverse representation, and those diverse individuals were they kind of felt like about time. That was part of the sentiment. It's about time that we created this document again to at least acknowledge some of the work that we're doing on campus.
Yeah, I do have a question about this. This is a really nice, like a kind of documentation. I'm sure I will share with our faculty, and also make sure they considered everything in the development of the operating papers. One thing is that you talk about, this is for the reference. People can take it or not. What I would think faculty may ask, class, that's not me. I'm already a professor, so it's not like a tenure promoting stuff. Because they could think, okay, yes, it's very nice. For instance, they say, okay, creating or leading programs, what you have done related to ABEI. On the other hand, like faculty who have not involved in this activities, if this point is in the tenure promotion item, then you think, oh, if I don't have this one, will my tenure promotion also be negatively impacted? So those are the things people could think, oh, we may not include this into the tenure promotion, like operating paper, because just for that purpose. I don't know. I'm just like a.
I mean, the way it could work though is that, it works, I think, similarly to the idea of collaboration. Like collaboration is either highly valued because it's recognized as cooperative work, then takes in more effort. And I don't mean just like collaborating with these graduate students, but I mean really collaborating. Or, I've always thought about like having a document like this for collaboration. It looks like you have fewer publications if you're collaborating, right? But on the other hand, collaboration isn't seen. Same way for this kind of intangible kind of work. Say you have 4 publications instead of 5, but you put in a more enormous amount of work into what would be termed as, I'm sorry, I always get the initials wrong on everything, IDA. Whatever, EDI, you get enormous, you do enormous work, outreach, you actually, you have certain students that work with you, that all certain students always come to you, you have 10 times more students who are coming to you, so forth. That is the place where you say, oh, well, there's 4 publications instead of 5, but that is maybe, we have to wait that out against the fact that they're doing all this other labor. And once the idea is that hopefully this will reduce eventually and that it won't be seen as something special. And that's the only weird thing about putting it in the papers.
Yes, actually, the document is worth, sorry to say that, nothing, unless it's in the operating paper. But the problem when you go to the operating paper, whether it's school operating paper or college operating paper, so your assignment is ready, you have teaching, research, and you have service. So this could be included in the service parts. Well, it's gonna be very hard, to include it in the research parts. Because if a faculty decide to do research on diversity, and the faculty decide to do research on, I don't know, omega-3, for example, or something else. So why would we favorize this one versus this one? Because we're in academia. Everybody is free to decide to do whatever they want to do research.
I don't think it's a
So, really quickly, I don't want this to be a debate on how people are going to use these or whether they're going to use them. It is absolutely going to be difficult, but really the point of these is just to have them out there so units can choose that sort of on their phone.
But in order for them to use them, it has to be part of the operating paperwork.
But that is up to those operating paper committees to look at these guidelines and say, I would like to adopt some of this or none of this. And it's totally fine either way. We're not going to judge or try to influence how faculty choose their operating papers.
In a world where everybody is, implementing and adopting diversity and inclusion, I think it should be in every operating work, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but this is a debate that's going to happen regardless. Who's first?
I have no idea. It just seems to me that it needs to be advertised and made available so that people know that they can take it and take what pieces they want, advertise for what it is, maybe have its own webpage. As far as the faculty senate, it seems to me that what we can do is put in a motion of support. This is what we support as guidelines if we want to do anything at all.
May I address your question? In fact, this is exactly what Bethany asked me to do during the faculty, I think SIU, FNCSS meetings. In other words, the faculty senate just recommended integrating or considering this policy by being consistent with collective bargaining agreement and university policies. Our job just to make a recommendation. So I think the two ways to do it, one, we have a resolution, which we put it on the table on the agenda next month. Two, there may be any resolution from the floor, and then it's in 1 second or not second, two ways to do it, because any senator can make a motion.
I would like to make a motion to actually communicate everything here to every school and every college to include it in their operating paper.
That it's available as a guideline for aspects of to be included at their choosing as they see fit for their specific department.
And for those who already submitted their OPs, would be included as amendment.
So can you rephrase your motion in any 1 second?
Okay, I would like this document to be forwarded to every school and every college in SIU that they can try to implement some of this language in their operating paper.
Also, we
wait a second, I have a question. So basically you were saying, I try to understand what your motion is saying. They have to include
No.
somehow,
They
or it's
can't.
not.
Consider.
They don't have to.
They have to take what fits with the
With it.
needs,
So if, for
because
instance,
we are very diverse.
okay, so for instance, if they say they don't say that they fit, they don't have to. Is that correct?
For their consideration. How about for their consideration?
Okay, for their consideration.
Because we're not telling them what to
Okay.
do.
Okay.
So could you rephrase your motion?
okay.
Make sure it's clear.
Yeah, I understand.
No interruption.
I would like for this document to be forwarded to the operating paper committees within the schools and the colleges for their consideration. Is that okay?
Anyone second?
Yeah,
Yes.
I understood that.
Anyone second?
Second,
Okay, number second. So we're going to vote, the people on platform, there is a motion here and also Senator Lee Chang Wong second, actually I'm the second. And now we're going to vote all in favor, raise your hand.
Wait, state the motion again, please. Isn't that important? Can you state the motion again, please?
Okay. The motion is, we would like to forward this document to the operating paper committees within the schools and the colleges for their consideration.
George, did you write it down?
I'll get it from the recording.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know it's too long, okay.
And that's all, just very open language, just,
Forward it for their consideration.
okay.
Okay, so I think one of you Amber second, right?
yes, I did say.
Discussion, right? Don't you have discussion before you do the vote?
Then we are going to have more
A
discussion.
little more, don't you have a moment for more discussion? I barely know Roberts, I just learned it at this school, but I remember there's always a little more discussion. Okay. So I would say, I don't know if this is a friendly amendment, but that it should be forwarded along with a narrative of why this came about.
Is that something Dr. Caldwell would like to do?
I could expand more on that. So as you, I don't know who had a chance to read the
I
guide.
would not-
But if you all feel like I could definitely expand on that, but I wanted to, right, that's what I was, I just wanted to be clear about the fact that we're recommending that we're not mandating, and it came from faculty. Because I work with faculty and I understand that those things are important, and I think the only thing that we need to, if there was anything that I would add, I just want to make sure, because I do understand concerns, that we're clear that this is not in any way meant to be penalty, you know, a penalty is just additive, and it's even acknowledgement. I mean, really. Because the thing I would say, I think that if anyone of you look through every single guideline, you would probably say I'm doing that. Like, why not get credit? You know, one of those things, at least every single faculty is probably doing something on this list. And so really, that's what we were saying. What are people already doing? And how can we acknowledge that in the, again, the 10-year promotion process?
So we do not need any amendment. And also we have a motion second, no amendment. So any more discussion before we vote?
I just want to add something. The main reason for me why I would like this to go out is, at least for some people that forget completely about this, to have it in their opinion.
Yes.
Okay, so no more discussion, we're going to.
Question,
Okay.
calling for the vote.
She's calling the question. She's calling for us to vote.
It's,
Question is a vote. That's the way in Robert's rules you call for a vote. It's a
Yeah.
question. I know it's weird.
Sorry.
Right, yeah,
I didn't make it.
we have a motion, we have a discussion. Now, we close the question. We're going to vote.
No, the question is to call for a vote.
Yes,
It's a
okay.
weird way to.
We're going to vote. Okay, so all in favor, raise your
In
hand.
favor means forwarding. Okay.
Okay, those people on the platform. If you're in favor, please raise your hand. 19. Okay. Very.
Yeah, me too. Lower your hands.
18. Okay. So anyone opposed? So we still have two hands. So
I think they're left up by mistake.
anyone opposed? Okay, no one opposed. Abstention. Okay, so. Senator Mike, there's one absent.
One absent.
Abstention, okay. to actually win. Okay, promotion by Senator Maxine Conley passed. Now, we have, thank you so much.
Actually, can I just add one comment? Now we're done with this. It's a separate, it's really, really quick, is to think about how we could acknowledge and reward this work outside of the TNP system for units that don't adopt any of this. There's a need to acknowledge that municipal labor, that work, that I would say that would be something to think of, potentially think of that.
Okay,
And I actually think one of the things that they did is that they now have an award that you can include people who are doing faculty specific, well, maybe that's something that they actually created this past year. As yes, acknowledge that. And we now have, we've rewarded, it was a voting process, but Father Brown received the inaugural Lifetime Achievement Award. So that's something that our office has come to. Yeah, we'll be doing that every year.
thank you so much.
All right, thank you all. I really appreciate your engagement and thank you for holding.
Well, we have one more resolution on the floor. That means, okay, resolution for faculty development and support. I think you have a copy of the resolution and all the where I there, I'm going to skip reading all of this. Basically, I'm going to read. Therefore, be resolved that SIU Carbondale Faculty Senator recommended that the provost office develops a comprehensive academic plan which includes tangible measures for faculty success, including faculty development, faculty mentorship, and faculty support. And be it further resolved that SIUC Faculty Senator invite the provost to give the faculty senator an annual report on faculty development and faculty support at the faculty senator summer meeting in July each year. So that's the resolution. Any question before we move it?
I move that the resolution for the faculty development and support be accepted.
Okay, in 1 second. Okay, and Li Chang second. So we're going to vote.
Question.
Any question? I know. Yeah. Question. Yeah. Any more questions? Okay. Well, if there's no more question, we're going to vote. All in favor, raise up your hand.
Why are we raising our hands? We should explain. Is it yes or no?
So raise up and say yes.
All in favor?
In favor.
More training.
Okay.
Yeah, same.
So anyone opposed? Okay, no one opposed. No nay, and abstention. No one abstention. Okay, thank you so much. Pretty much that's the business from the Faculty Status Welfare Committee and Senator Jennifer Walker. Do you have anything to add?
I think you covered it all. Well, I'm good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Thank you, Kelly, for the motion. Appreciate it. So moving on to the governance committee. To you, Dr. Hanson.
So before starting, actually, I would like to, within diversity and inclusion, we have many students and faculty and members and staff. This university in Morocco. And Morocco, as you know, there is huge, many losses. So my condolences to the families that in their support. We wish we could do more within the university to show our compassion for international students and for everybody in this university. Yesterday, that Libya has been hit by a huge, storm that killed 3,000 people. By the way, on the sideline, Morocco was the first country to recognize the United States as an independent country. So the longest, oldest treaty that does exist between US and foreign countries is with Morocco, actually. So without them, we would not have been a nation today. The British did not, and the Spaniards did not. So it was one country that was strong enough to say yes. So we don't actually coming back to work. So one of the charges that we had last semester was actually the OP, the operating paper. So we met with the Russian Central Administration and we went through some, discussions. And some of the OPs, based on that discussion, will return back to their schools. So lots of them, they're going to be coming this semester. So I really encourage everybody, if you don't have OPs in your schools or your college, basically your dean or your school director can do whatever they want to do with you. So please, 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 please talk to the people, get those OPs done. Yes.
Are there models of OPs that have been approved?
I am happy to share with you some of the models. So I will be, requesting the one that has been approved, the one that are still going, because there are some sections, that when people are, the problem is, I was in the OP paper for my school. Well, I'm professor of genomics and genetics. There's some stuff that I might be missing. So that's why the more we can help each other, we can come up with something that could represent us. And we're very diverse. We go from hard sciences to human sciences, this. So people, they have to try to include what can, I see an OP as a way of protecting yourself. And it's really your contract with your college. And one day or another, you never know what's going to happen. At least there is some guidance that could be used to say, yes, you deserve this, or no, you don't. That's why you have to be engaged.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on our OP committee, we're meeting, we haven't done anything yet, but I don't know how we're gonna handle the TNT section with 3 different facilities. So I'm curious to see if there's been any, I've been hearing about them being turned back. And so if we've had models where they're working and acknowledging different TNP processes for different units within schools, that would be.
The complication is, and I worked for almost a year on this, I was thinking this is something that's going to take a semester and that's it. So you send it to the faculty, say not to give their inputs. And seriously, I have to be honest here. So we had the input of the administration that comes quicker compared to the faculty senate. And there are some stuff, that by the time you get the input and you really have this year, or now I have to modify this and stuff, because there is this feeling that this is my thing and I'm the one who should dictate the rules here. And that's what, has been delaying things. And when sometime, it goes there, it comes back because there is this issue that has to be discussed. Well, the administrators, they also recognize that there is a contract with the faculty and association, and that's the contract that dictate many of the things. So really, it take a while to get things figured out, and that's why we're not trained. We don't have an MBA administration or any, organization that you can go over everything there. So that's why get the people to work on it, send it. At least you get that first feedback, and then you can work again on it. For my committee, and actually we discussed this just by email, we've decided, because, and this is from past experience, I mean, there are many things that really could be thrown on the floor, but which one of them is really important to us, and that can be, serve the general audience. And that's why we decided for this semester to focus on things that will have, benefit to the general audience. So my colleague, is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, well, one thing is we will follow the current faculty senate operating paper to set up meetings. We are going to set up meetings for the spring, like annual meetings, and also in order to probably achieve that, we may have some. So the meeting just faculty can come in to talk about the initial statements, but we haven't finalized yet, but that's in discussion.
I have one quick question. It came up in our summer meeting, the notion of encouraging the university to give the faculty senate president a course release, because they do an enormous amount of work in meetings and all that kind of stuff. I don't know where that went in July's meeting. I know we talked about it. I don't know what committee. Is it a budget committee question? Is it a governance question? Is it I'm abstaining. You're abstaining. Who do we, it was brought up that, the labor is enormous, so.
You have a question about opening the paper, right?
No, it's not that, well, no, it's just a question of, is it the governance question or another committee's question? It was a summer discussion.
You want my opinion? I think everybody here should be paid for the effort that they do, because nobody volunteered their work today and don't get paid for it in one way or another, whether it's, half a month salary or 1 month salary or, course release. And sometimes some of the committees I was talking to, they spend an enormous time, going through, paperwork, numbers, stuff like this. And they are not compensated for that, because even within, how it happens, every year you negotiate, your assignment with your school director and dean. And there is just enough of the service of what you can put there, I mean, if you're spending 4 hours per week or 6 hours per week sometime on issues related to this, for me, that's the equivalent of, 2 times 3 credit hours that you are teaching, and you're not compensated for that. So really, I think that there should be serious talks about how President, his office, and maybe some of the faculty that are engaged in more stuff that concern, the faculty senate, how can they be compensated? And this could be done at both levels, the governance committee and the budget. If you don't ask for something, you're not going to get it. Worst thing, they're going to tell you no. Sorry, guys.
Okay, I want to add that for the current situation, I do not know where it goes. Probably if you think that we can talk to the chancellor or provost, number one. Secondly, for the issue you talked about in the faculty senate operating paper, we want to add that. So that is something, of course, we add and then we can put sharing. Yeah, I'll keep that.
Maybe we can put it in the agenda for next meeting to discuss it and come up with a resolution. This way we can take it from both sides and hopefully we can have it.
Question on this issue. Am I right in thinking, based on the context, that there is currently nothing? Like there is not a.
Double zero. That's what you have today.
Zero. Right? Right. And for the scope of the question, exactly who are we talking about?
At least for the president, who spent a lot of time, he made actions, talking to people and many things.
Sure. I just would prefer that when you're doing the consideration to define it well.
We had the resolution already approved in July. Yeah. It's approved. It's just like I think the Rachel's question like now we have the resolution. So where is she to go? So get it enforced. So that's the things we haven't done that. And then the next one is like we need to get it instead of one resolution for this one. So in the future, we should put into our operating paper, faculty senate.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Anything to report? Thank you very much for the discussion. Moving on to UAPC. So unfortunately, Jeff Punske could not be with us today, so they have nothing to report for today. However, I believe they have 7 resolutions for us next month. So be on the lookout for all that paperwork coming our way.
Yeah, I'm on that committee.
Yes.
We did communicate via email in the past 2 weeks.
Yes.
And we are attempting to have a Zoom meeting by next Tuesday.
Awesome.
So we're trying to schedule that meeting and before this start.
Understood. Yeah, there were some issues I know with some of the armies that came through from last semester.
Yeah, that's what we have to do.
Yes, thank you very much. And then moving on to the ad hoc committee on institutional ranking and educational. Dr. Chakowski and me.
Thank you. I will say first then, Senator Ilan Joukowsky will add what I was missing. Okay. In the summer, we met with subcommittee or chairs or co-facilitators. We also met with new administrators, including Provost Tucker and also the Director of Communication and Marketing, Jeffrey Harmon, and the Director of Institutional, in fact, even Mr. There's also the Director, David Sherman. And we added 3 more students to our Idaho committee. In addition to undergraduate students, so we added 3 graduate students to our Idaho committee. So that's a brief report. The next meeting, which we scheduled this Friday, September 15th. And again, the meeting is open to anyone. If you are interested, just let me know. I will be more than willing to bring you information. Elaine, would you like to add anything?
Yes, just a couple of things. First of all, I want to say, I think it's great that we've got support throughout the institution. So we were able to add undergrad and grad students and then an administrator to each of our subcommittees. And we also met with Provost Tucker, and she was very supportive and excited to see how this work can mesh with her concept of an academic strategic plan. So I also felt that that was a really positive thing for her in terms of, gaining support throughout the institution. It's just not something that is out there for doing. And there's a real interest in trying to improve the ranking. So we're eagerly awaiting the results this month that are going to come out for the new rankings and see what's happened, if anything's changed from last year's ranking. Not that it would change that quickly, but just to get a glimpse and see how that fares out. So that's just a few things. And I want to thank Dr. Lee for his unwavering kind of energy, this movement. Even on without summer contract, he was still out there in the trenches. Anyway, let's go.
Thank you. Any question for us?
Sure. My first question was going to be, when did the rankings come out for this year, but apparently very, very soon. Can you remind us what the ranking was from last year?
Now, currently, our rank last year is 263. And I remember, 2016, we're ranking 152, then 17, 18 is 180. In the past 2 or 3 years, we were in 260, something like that. Okay. Now, we would like to make clear, we are not dictated by the US News World Report indicating. We use them as an approach to improve our universities' reputation, quality, and student success, which is more important. That's why we talk about enrollment, which includes not just new students, but student retention, graduation rate. We talk about shared governance, faculty support, not just concept, but faculty compensation, faculty quality. One of them heard our ranking. Well, faculty members, their compensation pretty low. We didn't get much support. That's why that's something we want to advocate. Yeah.
Well, the one thing that struck me is
question first.
Oh, sorry.
I think I want to add it to this, like the ratio. Faculty student ratio is very important.
That's not bad.
So that's why I think it's nice to.
Sure.
I was just going to say what strikes me is, faculty work really hard to bring the numbers and, to show that really our colleagues are paid almost nothing, compared to what they're doing. And this is, taking time. It's not really getting there. And then you have the administration jump. They have to respond to that. Oh, we're going to put it, So there should be some kind of, if it was me, every meeting we have with our administrators, we're going to have to bring this to the point. You have to act. You have to act if you want something to happen.
Absolutely. That's why in each committee, we have students, we have faculty, include some are faculty senator and students, both graduate and undergraduate students, and some administrators. Provost Tucker and the delegate committee are on 2 subcommittees. And then quite a few vice chancellors on different committees.
Yes, Dr. Lee. the milk costs much than just 2 years ago. Our salary is still the same. And if you don't make this heard, the results of the committees that work so much on the budget, on how much our faculty are getting, if we don't make it heard every time, it's gonna hurt again this university, it's gonna hurt everyone.
Absolutely, I agree with you. That's why when we talk about salary, obviously this is a consultative effort. Number one, depends on the enrollment, state budget. Okay, that's why I asked the question, state budget enrollment is important. And second, we need to, I think, I know Faculty Senate is independent from Faculty Association. And Jeffrey is not here, he is also Faculty Senate. Faculty Association has also Faculty Welfare Committee, they have a collective bargaining agreement. And even though Faculty Association negotiated the contract, if the enrollment is low, they cannot increase value. So that's why enrollment itself is very important. And again, okay, I just want you to object and not to be supporting any side, just the fact. On the other hand, if the university wants to improve the ranking, we do need to take care of our faculty. And the internal equity adjustment, very important. We have many associate professors who make much less than full professors. Even quite a few full professors that make less than assistant professor. So we are in a catch-22. On the one hand, we have to attract talent-based assistant professor. On the other hand, we need to keep up with internal raise compensations. All depend on the money budget. But that's why we want to raise our concerns. Thank you. Well, thank you very much for the question. I think you still have a few more reports, right?
Yeah, yes, we do. Thank you guys for your report. So we are now at our added agenda business. So Dr. Scott Collins, if you want to give a report from grad council, and Dr. Katsoulis, if you have anything to add, feel free.
Thanks.
Who should go first? What the heck? I'll go first. Thank you for inviting me to discuss today. I just grabbed some data since we're talking about rankings. The National Science Foundation Higher Education Research and Development data from 2021, that's the latest that has been published, shows SIU Carbondale to be third in the state behind UI-UC and UI Chicago. So we are the third best university in terms of research in the state, at least we were in 2021. So that's something to definitely, pat ourselves on the back. If I may, I want to also share my screen really briefly to talk to you about some of the things that we're working on. So we had a. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So we had a welcoming of our graduate students, about 150 or so on new graduate students showed up. And here are the numbers as of the 10th day or second week of classes. Our graduate enrollments are up a little bit under 1%. You can see the numbers there we have like 21 more students. If you look at engineering, there's been a significantly large growth, and the same thing with health and human sciences. So if you look at international graduate enrollments, they're up almost 12%. Again, the growth has been primarily in engineering, a lot of master students, but also health and human sciences. 10 students doesn't seem that much, but if you only have 50, that's a 20% growth. The same thing happened with liberal arts, and also a little bit of growth in CALPS. But here's an interesting thing. I think the chancellor might have mentioned that also about undergraduate enrollment and growth. The on-campus graduate enrollments have been down, 41 students or less than 1%. But here's where the growth is, and the growth is in online graduate enrollments, almost 11%. And you can see health and human sciences, a little bit in business analytics, and so on. So for better or for worse, in the next few years, that's where the growth will be. It will be online. It will not be necessarily synchronous. It will probably be asynchronous. And that's something that we are not the only university to accept and understand. And that's something that we need to continue pursuing. In terms of research, we closed the books on 2023, and the books look really good. We have almost doubled the awards that we asked for compared to 2021. We asked for $194 million. In 2021, we asked for $100 million, $101 million. And the awards we received are 26 or something % more than the previous year. Now, in these numbers, I have to let you know that for 21, I'm not including almost $21 million we received as COVID relief because these were not competitive. And in 22, I'm not including close to $6 million that we received as COVID relief funds. So these numbers are competitive awards. So it looks really good. Our faculty have done an amazing job in asking for money, not only asking, but also succeeding in getting the money. Last year, we had 11 Let's Talk research workshops, going from how to use ORCID to all the way how to technology transfer. Through funds of the graduate school, we sent 84 students to conferences where they presented their work. And we supported 50 faculty who went to conference to present their work. And we're already starting approving additional faculty and students this fiscal year to go to conferences. Finally, this year and the next year, this month and next month, in September 2, we had a presence, a graduate school at the State Fair. We talked to 17 people who were interested in graduate school. We talked to a lot of other people who were not interested in graduate school. They were more interested in our swag, but that's good. We get a presence. Our swag wasn't that impressive anyway. September 5th, we had a meeting with in person with the faculty about the services that the Vice Chancellor of Research Office offers in OSPA. On the 6th, we had a in-person meeting also about working with human subjects. I was glad to see that the majority of the attendees on September 6th were students who intend to work with human subjects. In a couple of weeks, we'll be doing a workshop called the 3 R's in wildlife research. And in October 12th, we have a very interesting workshop about how you learn to be a mentor. We have faculty from all 3 campuses attending and talking about how they develop their mentoring and so on. And the other good thing is we encourage strongly not just faculty, but also students to attend because this will fulfill the responsible conduct of research, at least partially fulfill responsible conduct of research requirements. Finally, some of you, I hope all of you, have seen the email that went around asking for proposal mentors. We're trying to build a team of faculty who are very knowledgeable in reviewing proposals, who can assist our faculty in reviewing their proposals and improving them. Hopefully, we're going to get a higher percentage of success and hits. So that's all I had, and I will entertain questions you'll have.
What was the ranking that you mentioned earlier? Where'd you find that? The ranking that you mentioned that we're third in?
Yes, in terms of HERD, which is the National Science Foundation, we self-report the higher education, research and development. This is internal and external expenditures specifically for research. We are third in the state of Illinois. Now, we are fourth if you count the University of Chicago, but in terms of state schools, we are third.
Great.
Yeah.
How about the Northwestern? I would think the Northwestern will be higher than us.
I'm sorry, who?
Sorry, Northwestern.
I don't count Northwestern, they're not a state school.
I mean, you counted you Chicago.
Yes, let me look.
But that's
I
why-
have UIUC is number one, Northwestern is number one, UIUC 2, U Chicago 3, UI Chicago 4th, SIUC 5th, Loyola, IIT, Northern Illinois, Illinois State, Southern Illinois, Western Illinois, UI Springfield. This is the sequence. So you are correct. I forgot to mention Northwestern. I was focusing on state schools only.
I'll be very happy.
Any other questions? Oh, did you have something else to say?
Yeah.
Li Cheng.
Oh, like I was wondering, so you will continue to support the faculty attend conferences? Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
We continue to support
Yeah.
faculty attending conferences, as well as we only send one faculty who asks for it, but we will support faculty who want to visit funding agencies. So
Okay.
please don't forget that. We also
Okay.
have a fund to support purchasing, repair, and renovation of equipment and facilities. And we're also doing that. For the last quarter of 2023, we supported almost $70,000 in repairs, renovations, and so on, from building pens for cattle to purchasing equipment in chemistry. And keep in mind, this is not my money. This is your money, right? This is the money that the faculty have managed to generate through indirect returns. So this is just something that, with the help of the research committee of the Graduate Council, they are the ones who evaluate these. I'm just giving the money away, and this is something that always makes me really happy. I wish I had more to give away.
Just quickly, is there a list of available opportunities on your website?
Yes.
I don't know about the.
Just to summarize, the major opportunities are, graduate students, we send them to conferences, that's on the grad school website. On the VCR's website is opportunity to send faculty to conference and funding agencies, as well as supporting repair and so on of equipment. And since we're talking about research for graduate students, just some good news. We recently, like 2 days ago, we received $50,000 from an alumna to support undergraduate research. So these are the things that we're trying to do to grow the number of our students who are engaged in research. And you'll see the press release, you get early information about the press release. I cannot tell you the name or anything, but hopefully you'll see the press release, and these are the things we're working on.
Thank you very much. I think we'll move on to Scott so we can end on time.
Excellent, excellent. I just want to give a report from the August 24th grade council meeting. We passed 2 RMEs. One of them was a resolution for an accelerated bachelor's in econometrics and quantitative economics to an MA in economics. And then a resolution for accelerated MS and ME in biomedical engineering. Both those were approved by our new programs committee. Then the Ed Policies Committee passed 4 resolutions. One of them was a resolution regarding GPA calculations and financial eligibility. The grad school had moved that back down to the unit level last spring, and it is now permanently moved. It'll stay at units to keep things moving efficiently, and that was moved through unanimously. The other resolution that you all probably saw a lot of was the 601 registration. Historically, 601 was taking place on day 5 of the semester. However, now it is day 1. And that's just to try to move students along in making a decision on their registration before that way things can be settled more clearly before the 10-day count. And that worked well. Another resolution was regarding the master's GPA exemption. It was a catalog language change from a may to a will. It removed ambiguity, and that way it was just more for a catalog edit. The next one was a resolution to change the Morse Fellowship deadline and application materials, and they're trying to move that from January to run with March 1st. Okay.
Could you just repeat that one?
Morris Fellowship deadline and application materials. It's moved back. It was mid-January and now it's moved back. There was, the original proposal was April 15th, but there was a lot of discussion on thinking that was too late. And so it's appearing to be March 1st.
And then the other grad school fellowships is still all of January.
They'll stay whatever they are, because they were not included in this resolution, yes. 2 resolutions were discussed and then sent back to the committee for more discussion before they have a complete vote. And one of those was involved around Duolingo minimum scores. And the Duolingo is similar to the TOEFL. 105 is equal to a 70 to 75 on TOEFL, and then a 6.0 on IELTS. So there was discussion about that. So they went back, they're taking it back to committee to see how many people would be affected. So they'll probably come forward next month. And then the other one, okay, so that was sent back. I forgot the other one here, but then the resolution on the second MS. The second MS degree, there was some language saying that a student can earn, I'll just read it. A student may earn a second master's degree if the second degree is offered by an academic unit different from that of the first master's degree. Well, since the reorg, a lot of units now are all in the same area. So there was a proposal to the language, a lot of discussion. It's going back to the committee to try to hone out the wording, but that is coming forward due to the reorg. So that is moving forward. And then our program review committee has been made aware that there's going to be 3 internal reviews: the master's in geography and environmental resources, the master's in cybersecurity and cyber systems, and the master's in radiologic sciences. Those 3 will all have our grad council members involved in the internal reviews. So, and our next meeting is October 5th. So, thank you all.
Thank you.
One quick.
One quick.
Oh.
Well, I was wondering whether like a increase of graduate students, like payments and like is on your agenda.
Regarding the GA stipend.
Correct.
Well, I think that was made as an administrative change. It did not make it to the full council, but they have the stated minimums out there. And then you have the units have the ability to go up and pay. But if they take one person in one category up, they got to take every GA in that category up, GA or TA or whatever. There's also a lot more flexibility in the research assistantships, specifically if they're grant funded, that they can have different rates from all the others if they're specifically on one grant. So yes, there is flexibility to the units, but it's up to them to maintain the budget.
Okay, I'll get more on that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. Moving on, is there any old business?
I just want to quickly say, I was not trying to confuse you, Louis. Thank you, Tang, with the question. It's a parliamentarian thing that I used to do in high school. It's allowable. You call the question. It itself is a motion. What it's meant to do is stop the debate and bring up a vote. And it's probably not necessary for a group this size, so I won't do that because it's too confusing.
So I will be distributing a Robert's Rules cheat sheet shortly.
Oh, okay.
Can we just adopt the term call the question explicitly as opposed to just the word question?
Yeah, it's supposed to be, I call the question, so that's my mistake, Mr. Rex. But I was just trying to end the debate and get the vote, and if you're not used to doing it that way, it's confusing.
No worries, Amber.
Very good point, thank you.
Okay, any new business?
I have a question actually. So for answers that we would like to have from our chancellor or provost or any vice chancellor, is it possible to send them the question like before? This way, they can work on it and they can come prepared.
Yes, I don't see why that would be an issue at all. If you would like that to go through me, I'm happy to do so.
Yes, because one of the questions I have, we all now hear about, the increase in enrollment and we're targeting 15,000 when I looked at the numbers. That's almost 36% increase. So I would like to know if there was, some simulations or calculations that was done about what does the university need to be able to be, sustainable with the 15,000, number one. Number two, So what happened, because we have faculty that are retiring and with the state budget and everything, so can we really accommodate 15,000 and what are the needs, what are the challenges? So that's my number one question that we would like to send in. So number two, with this increase that we have seen, I know that the university has invested in many initiatives. So I would like really to know which initiatives did really help us to reach and maximum number.
Right, please send that to me in writing, so I don't forget. But yes, I'm happy to communicate that.
Add to that point.
No, you cannot. We will need to vote to extend the meeting if you do.
It's fine.
So if there's no other new business, we would need a motion to adjourn.
I'm moving.
Second, all in favor, say yay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you everyone for being here. We appreciate it. See you again next month.
Thank you.
Sorry, Michael. No. I didn't want to extend the meeting.
I think one thing that I was. Is there,